Thank you. Good morning. It's so great to be here with you. Great to be with Joyce. I want to talk to you this morning about filling your mind to fulfill your life. I want to help us today to understand there is a connection between what I put in my mind and how fulfilled my life really is. I can almost promise you that when I look at a person that lives a fulfilled life, and one of the reasons we're here at the conference is to live a fulfilled life, to learn how to do that. And I can almost promise you when I look at a person that is living a fulfilled life, it's because they filled their mind with the right things. And I can almost promise you people that have a bankrupt life, bankrupt relationally, bankrupt emotionally, spiritually. I can almost promise you that you could go right back to the root of that bankrupt life and you would find that they put in their mind the wrong things. So I'm going to talk to you about how you and I think. In fact, there's a passage of scripture that the Ecclesiastes writer wrote, and most of my stuff is in the Message, and I think they're going to put it up on the screen for me today, but there's a passage of scripture in Ecclesiastes Chapter 10, verse 2. This just says it all. Wise thinking leads to right living. Stupid thinking. I love the Message. Stupid thinking leads to wrong living. Right, there it is. There it is. The fulfilled life. Wise thinking, right living. Stupid thinking, wrong living. Are you ready to learn something? Okay. Look at your neighbor and say, you're going to learn something. Okay. The person you just said that to, look at him again and say, and it's about time. In fact, think about it for a moment. Look at him and say, not only is it about time, why do you think I brought you to this conference, huh? Why do you think you're sitting beside? Why do you think I helped pay your way? Hello? Why do you think I asked you to come? Here we go. Your attitude is the paintbrush of your mind. That's what it is. You see, your attitude paints on your mind anything you desire it to paint. My wife Margaret is an artist. She paints with oils. And she constantly collects pictures. She has a file. If you go into her little art studio, you would find a file of pictures that she has collected over the years, pictures that she loves, that someday she wants to take with her in the studio and she wants to paint it. And so she's very selective about what she puts in her files, and she has certain kinds of things that she loves that really kind of emotionally kind of connect with her. And every time I see her take one of those pictures and go into her room and put it in the file, I think of myself, this is exactly the way it is. This is exactly the way it is with the mind. You see, you and I deposit in our mind the pictures that we want to be there and want to have stay there. The attitude, your attitude, my attitude right now is the paintbrush. We have it in our hands. It's in our control. It's not in your hand. It's not in someone else's hand. It's not in your husband's hands. It's not in your neighbor's hands. It's in your hand. You have the paintbrush in your hand. And basically on this canvas of the mind, you and I can paint anything that we desire. Two of our grandchildren, Maddie and Ella, 10 and 6, they live about a mile and a half from us. And the other day, Margaret and I went over to their house. And they were out in the garage, they were having the time of their life. A 10-year-old and a 6-year-old, and they both had paintbrushes. and they were painting their desk. And they got to choose the color. And I can tell you, I couldn't even get them away. I could hardly even get a hug. And when they started to give me a hug, they did it with a paintbrush. I said, well, we'll do that later. I couldn't get them away because they were so excited. They had the paintbrush in, and they're painting. They're putting on that desk exactly how they want it to be, the color they want it to be. And they're as they're doing this, I'm thinking to myself, this is exactly the way the mind works. This is exactly the way the attitude works. We paint the picture. And sometimes, all of us, every one of us here, sometimes we say, oh, I wish I could be someone else, or I wish I could live that kind of a life, or I wish I could be her, or I wish I could go there. I have something that I read the other day. I liked it. It was so amusing. I laminated it. You have to understand, if it's good, the first thing I do is I laminate it. This is a laminated card. You just have to understand, I've laminated for years. I'm the only person I know that has the spiritual gift of lamination. But I mean, if it's good, it's laminated. I mean, I have a lot of laminated cards. And if I would have been Moses, when I went up on Mount Sinai, come on, talk to me. I wouldn't have put the 10 Commandments on stones. Those babies will break. No, I would have stuck them on laminate. I would have been going through that camp, and I've been going and stuck them in every Jewish pocket I could find. I'd just say, here's 10 Commandments. Right? This is a laminated card, which means whenever I pull out a laminated card, you listen. I like this. It's entitled In My Next Life. If you're a bear, you get to hibernate. You do nothing but sleep for 6 months. I could deal with that. Before you hibernate, you're supposed to eat yourself stupid. I could deal with that too. And if you're a bear, you birth your children who are the size of walnuts while you're sleeping. And you wake up to partially grown, cute, cuddly cubs. I could definitely deal with that. If you're a mama bear, everyone knows you mean business. You swat anyone who bothers your cubs. If your cubs get out of line, you swat them too. I could deal with that. And if you're a bear, your mate expects you to wake up growling. He expects that you will have hairy legs. And he expects that you will have excess body fat. I could deal with that. I'm going to be a bear. Isn't that fun? I tell you, if it's laminated, you listen. Well, you don't have to fantasize about being a bear, because the Apostle Paul in Philippians 4, Philippians is my favorite book. In Philippians chapter 4, Paul talks about the fulfilled life. And the scripture is going to come on your screen. I'm going to read it quickly. I'm going to apply what Paul talks about as far as what a fulfilled life looks like. We're going to get a picture of it. Remember, the attitude is the paintbrush of the mind. We're going to get a picture of what a fulfilled life looks like, and then we're going to take the paintbrush, and we're going to take the attitude beside the picture, and we're going to begin to paint it so that it becomes ours. Okay, let's go in the scriptures. Celebrate God all day, every day. I mean, revel in Him. Make it as clear as you can to all you meet that you're on their side, working with them and not against them. Help them see that the master is about to arrive. He could show up at any minute. Don't fret or worry. Instead of worrying, pray. Let petitions and praises shape your worries into prayers, letting God know your concerns. Before you know it, a sense of God's wholeness everything coming together for good, will come and settle you down. It's wonderful what happens when Christ displaces worry at the center of your life. There are four things that Paul talks about here that helps us to live a fulfilled life. Number one, he says, celebrate God. He said, if you want to know what a picture of a fulfilled life is, it's a life that revels in God every day. Celebrate God. Number two, add value to people. He said, come alongside people and add value to them. If you want to live a fulfilled life, live beyond yourself. Number three, give God your concerns. Let your worries be given to Him. Take them to Him in prayer. And he says, fourthly, that we will experience God's wholeness in our life in verse 7. So a fulfilled life is one that celebrates God. Joyce has been talking about a party. It's one in verse 5 that adds value to people. In verse 6, it's one that gives God our concerns. And in verse 7, it allows us to experience the wholeness of God within our life. Now, that's how Paul describes the fulfilled life. So here's the question. We're going to stay in the same scripture, by the way. If that is how Paul describes a fulfilled life, then how do we receive it? How do we do these things? How does this become possible in your life and my life so that we can have this fulfillment that he talks about? The answer is very simple. Paul is going to show us, starting in verses 8 and 9, that all the things he talked about are possible if we fill our mind correctly. So let's go back to the screen. Let's go to verses 8 and 9. Here he is. He's summing it all up for us now. He's just told us what a fulfilled, he's just given us a picture of fulfilled life. Remember, your attitude is the paintbrush of your mind. Here we go. Summing it all up, friends. I'd say you'll do best by filling your minds and meditating on things true, noble, reputable, authentic, compelling, gracious, the best, not the worst, the beautiful, not the ugly, things to praise, not things to curse. Put into practice what you learned from me, what you heard and saw and realized. Do that. And God, who makes everything work together, will work you into this most excellent harmonies. Now, for the rest of my session, I'm going to talk about the passage of Scripture that Paul just wrote. I'm the middle child, my brother older, my sister younger. We were given an allowance as children to read books. That's how we were given our allowance. We were not given an allowance to do chores. I wanted an allowance to do chores because all my friends got allowance to do chores. So I remember one day going home to Dad and says, Phil Conrad gets an allowance to do chores. I think it's a good idea. How about giving us an allowance to do chores? And Dad said, no, it's a very bad idea. He said, you're not going to be paid to do chores around the house because you're part of a family, and I don't pay you to be part of a family. He said, let me explain it to you. He said, I do things for you, you do things for me. We all help each other. We don't pay each other because we're part of the family. He said, the best way I can explain to you, son, is by the time you were born, you already owed your mother for 9 months of room and board. So shut up and take out the garbage. And I did. But he did pay me and my older brother, my younger sister, to read books. He chose the books. We were required to read 30 minutes a day. He would put the books into my hand. Now, I say that because I'm talking about the mind. He put a book in my hand as a 7th grader, As a Man Thinketh, James Allen. James Allen in that book says something that I've never gotten away from since the 7th grade. He said, the greatest discovery of my generation is that we have found that you can alter your life by altering your mind. That if you change your mind, you can change your life. That if you fill your mind with the right thing, you can have a fulfilled life. Now, I read it as a 7th grader. I read that book as an 8th grader. I read it as a 9th grader, a 10th grader. I read that book every year. In fact, it's on my shelf in my office. I still read it every year, 76 pages. You see, I understood as a very young child that what I have in my mind is going to determine just about everything that happens to me in life. And I think because of that, when I first wrote my book, I've only written 50-some books. I've not written 80-some. I love, Joyce has written, whenever I think I'm doing good at writing, I just look at what Joyce has done. I say, John, you are a piker. You're just, she's just amazing. But the first book I wrote back in 1979 was a book called Think on These Things. The first book I wanted to write was a book on the mind. It wasn't a very good book. It's still in print, but trust me, don't get it. Just trust me. You notice I didn't say I had it up there to sell. You understand that. You just trust me on that. But in fact, a lady brought the book to me the other day. She brought it. It was my first, she said, do you know this is the first book you ever wrote? I said, yeah, I know. And she said, and then she shocked me. She said, I love this book. I said, you have got to be kidding me. I said, what do you love about it? She said, the short chapters. It's 100 pages long. Honestly, it's 100 pages long. I have 33 chapters. Yeah, you're hearing right. Yeah, three pages a chapter. You're exactly right, yeah. You're thinking, you've got to be kidding me. You mean you wrote your first book and you only have 3? And the ladies love it. She said, I love the short chapters. She said, how did you ever think of that? I said, lady, it was my first book. I said, you have to understand, 3 pages is as long as I could go. And in fact, some of the chapters are 2 pages too long. I mean, I ran out of gas. I didn't know what to say. I couldn't write anything else. It was my first book. But it was a book on the mind because I knew that if I could help people. No wonder Battlefield of the Mind has sold and continually sells and blesses people. No wonder you keep teaching it, Joyce. The reason you keep teaching is there's gold in there. You know that if a person can grab those principles of the mind, it'll change their life forever. It's a fact. It's true in your life. It's true in my life. And so that's why I wrote books on the mind. I wrote Think Your Way to the Top. I wrote Thinking for a Change. I wrote The Winning Attitude. I wrote The Difference Maker, the one that I've got here. Why are so many of my books on the mind and the choices and the thinking and the attitude? Is because this is what's going to make us or break us. In fact, let me explain it this way. Outside of my personal faith, if you and I had 30 minutes together and you sat down beside me one-on-one time and said, John, talk to me about what the most important thing is that you want to talk to me about, I will promise you, I would talk to you about how you think. Because the greatest gap between successful and unsuccessful people is not the education gap, it's not where you were born gap, it's not the age gap, it's not the poverty gap. The greatest gap between successful and unsuccessful people, listen to me very carefully, is how you think. There are more people who think wrongly and sabotage themselves. I was with a group of businesses recently doing a conference, and they were talking about the competition. I said, oh, don't worry about the competition. I said, most of you think so bad you'll blow yourself up. You don't need to worry about somebody else beating you out on the product. You'll just screw it up yourself. Just give yourself time. I mean, this is the way it works. If I could do one thing for you, I would teach you how to think in a way that will bring success to your life. And what's so wonderful is the Bible is full of all the principles. I mean, it's just absolutely loaded on. It's a success manual on how to think correctly. And yet I run into people, they don't think right. We have dental floss, to get the junk out. Yeah, we use dental. You understand. What we need is mental floss. Yeah. What we need is wouldn't it be wonderful? How many of you ever said, "If I were God"? Have you ever done that? If I were God, and I would have created bodies, I would have put a zipper on the head. And I put a zipper on the head so that every day you could unzip that sucker and pull out the mind, and you could floss that. Just floss it. Floss it and then spray it off. Just take a hose, stick it back in there, close that baby, zip it up, and say, be whole, be healed. I'll tell you something else. I would like to market a product called Sweet Spray. You carry it in your pocket. We have the, for the breath thing. Don't you hate it when somebody says, want it? Want a certain, huh? Wouldn't it be great if you just had some sweet spray? And every time you got around a person that has a bad attitude. Huh? Wouldn't this be amazing, huh? Wouldn't you just love this? Go next Monday to your boss, walk up and say, psst. Have somebody come up to you, they start complaining about things, you just go, psst. And just sweetness would come all over. Man, if we could market that, baby. Well, we don't have sweet spray, and we don't have mental floss, but hang on, fasten your seatbelts, because now we're getting right into the cream of the message. Because Paul, this is so beautiful, he not only tells us what a fulfilled life looks like, then he not only tells us how to fill our mind with that paintbrush that will allow us to put the right things in it. He said, I am now going to even show you or demonstrate to you what a great attitude looks like. And he gives us 4 things. Are you ready? Number 1. People with great attitudes possess a teachable spirit. That's what Paul says. In verse 9, what does he say? Put into practice what you have learned from me, what you have heard and saw and realized. Teachability requires from me and you repeated long, hard looks in the mirror. Because if we're going to be teachable, we're going to have to look at ourselves, and it's going to have to be a long look, it's going to have to be a hard look, and we're going to have to ask ourselves very sincerely, am I the problem? And because I don't have all day on this message, I just got to cut the chase and get to the bottom line. Let me tell you, when you look in the mirror and ask yourself, am I the problem? The answer is yes. Okay? Let me just help you. I was doing a leadership conference recently, and they were in a Q&A, and they were asking me questions, and one guy raised his hand and said, John, what's the hardest thing you do as a leader? I said, well, that's very simple. He said, well, then what is it? I said, lead myself. That's the hardest thing I do as a leader. It's much easier to lead you. I love telling people where to go. I love telling them how to get there. I love to show them the mountain. I am naturally bossy. Listen, I don't know about God's plan for your life, but if you're not sure, come to me. I'll give you my plan for your life. I'll fix it real quick. I'm good at this. I love leading people, pointing people, showing people, directing people, whistling, flagging them around. I love that stuff. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. I love it. You can tell I love it, can't you? And let me tell you something, the hardest person I ever led was me. It's so much easier to teach than to do. If I had to kick the person most responsible for my problems, I wouldn't be able to sit down for a week. Teachability allows God and others to speak into our lives. And Paul said, if you're going to have this kind of an attitude, if you're going to really paint what you want to of your mind, you're going to have a teachable spirit where you allow others and God to speak into your life in a sense of humility, where you receive it and accept it and apply it and make it a part of who you are. When I pastored in San Diego, it was a wonderful ministry, and God did some great things in that church, and I was getting close to the end of my ministry there, and my schedule was quite heavy, and I was traveling a lot nationally and internationally. I had already started 2 companies, and we were in a $45 million relocation program, and there was a lot on me. And when I have a lot on me, I sometimes get very, very impatient. It's one of my real weaknesses. And I came back into the city just for a couple of days, and there were 3 or 4 decisions that should have already been made by the staff that weren't made. So I sat in a meeting and I made the decisions in 30 seconds. I said, we're going to do this, we'll do this, anything else, done. Decisions made. Well, that wasn't my style of leadership. Normally I'm very interactive, and I love to get a lot of input, and I just bypassed all this, and I just made these 3 decisions, and they were pretty important decisions, and the congregation found out about them within a week or two, and they were not received well. For the first time, I'd been there for 11 years. For the first time, something I did leadership was kind of being questioned by the people, and I didn't like the questioning, and the questioning started to become some murmuring, and I got ticked. I said, I've got to preach a message. I have got to preach a message and help these people out. You know, there are some messages you don't even have to pray about. You just know where to go. I'm telling you, when you're a biblical scholar, there are just sometimes you say, God, I don't even need your help. Know right where it is. And I immediately went into the Old Testament. I got to Moses, and when the children of Israel complained, and the ground, you remember, the big hole, and the ground just swallowed them up. And I went to my study that morning, and I was so pumped on preparing a message. I got Moses and the ground and the people all swallowed up and that whole deal. And I'm telling you, this message. I was so inspired. I did it all in one setting, and it was so good. In fact, it was so good. I just wanted to send out a message that we won't wait till Sunday. That, you know, there are some things that can't wait. Tomorrow, come to church. I got a message for you, and I was so happy. I was so proud, and I went home that night, and I showed it to Margaret. I said, this is the message I'm going to preach, and I can hardly wait. Do they need this message? I should have known there was a problem when Margaret didn't agree. Now, I'm going to tell you something. People talk about they hate to hear from God. Let me tell you what, I hate to hear from my wife. Now, maybe Margaret hangs around and talks to me a lot more than God, to be honest with you, okay? And then I'll tell you what I really hate. You want to know what I'll tell you what I really hate. I hate when Margaret kind of speaks into my life with these spiritual thoughts. You know what is a double tick? When God agrees with her. And when she said, I'm not sure you really want to do that. Oh, yeah, I do want to. Oh, honey, I want to. Trust me, I want to do that. And I went to bed that night, and I didn't sleep very well that night. And I went back to my study. The next morning, I pulled out a message. I thought, boy, I was so excited about it yesterday. Wonder why I'm not so excited about it. And I'm looking at it, and God starts talking. And he says, John, the message isn't for the congregation. I mean, if it's not for them. As soon as I realized the message was for me, I thought, this can wait till Sunday. In fact, you know what? I think this was a message that wasn't meant to be preached. This is, sometimes you just get thoughts. And this is just a thought. That was a good thought, yeah. And whoa, all right. Now what do I see? What do I talk on Sunday? And God said, no, preach it, John. And John, when you preach it on Sunday, put all the passion, put all the intensity that you were going to put in the message when you thought it was for them. I can honestly tell you, every day that week I said, Jesus, it's time for you to come. It is time for you to come. Jesus, you're late. You're late. A lot of people have been wondering, this is the time. And then Jesus said, well, son, I may come this week, but I'm not sure I'm taking you. Oh! So I mounted the pulpit that Sunday, and I said, I'm going to preach a message today, but it's not for you, it's for me. But I need to preach it. So I'm going to preach the message, and when I'm done, I'm going to ask your forgiveness, and I'm going to go to the front and ask the elders to pray over me. And I preached this message about complaining and an attitude of grumbling. And I preached it as well as I could preach it. And when I was done, I wept and asked them to forgive me, and I went down, and the elders prayed over me. And I can tell you, the crumbling and the complaining and the kind of the little tension we were having, within 15 minutes, was all clear. It was all clear. It was all clear because at that stage I had a teachable spirit. And I can tell you that there are many times that I have to look at God and I have to say, oh God, help me to have a spirit in my heart that would always allow you to speak into my life and allow people who love me to speak into my life so that I can be the person that you really want me to become. And Paul said, if you're going to have a great attitude, you have to have a teachable spirit. And then secondly, he said, you have to take responsibility for your attitude. I know he said that. Because what did he say? He said, fill your minds on good things, meditate on good things, practice good things. Who's he talking to? He's talking to us. He wouldn't tell us to fill our mind on good things if we couldn't fill our mind with good things. He wouldn't tell us to practice good things if we couldn't practice the good things. He wouldn't tell us to meditate on good things if we couldn't meditate on good things. You know, you run into somebody that has a bad attitude and say, hey, what's wrong with you? Oh, well, you know, I got out on the wrong side of the bed. Boy, don't you wish it were that easy? If getting on the wrong side of the bed gave you a bad attitude, wouldn't this be super? You could just send them home. Tell them to go to the bedroom. Tell them to jump on the bed. Roll out on the right side and it'd be okay. Isn't it amazing how we blame people for our attitude? It's someone else. It can't be me. And Paul says, no. You're to practice these things. You're to fill your mind with these things. You're to meditate on these things. Paul's talking very clearly. He says, it's you. It's your choice. It's your responsibility. It's you to do these things. Mother-daughter Christmas shopping 2 days before Christmas. A lot of crowd. Tired. Feet weary. Long day, haven't had lunch. Mom's going into the department store and she's not too happy, kind of complaining a little bit. They go to a couple stores and they're walking back to the car in the shopping center. Mother looked at daughter and says, did you see that look, that nasty look that salesman gave me in that last store? And the daughter said, Mom, he didn't give that to you. You had that when you went in. I love the story about two construction workers. Every day they had lunch together. They'd open up their mailbox. Guy'd open up his mailbox. He'd start to bring out a sandwich. He'd open it up and he'd just, oh no! Bologna sandwich again. Bologna sandwich again. I hate bologna. Here it is again. Bologna sandwiches. Bologna. I hate bologna. And the guy hears it. He said, wait. Don't, calm down. Relax. Take a pill. I hate bologna sandwiches. Well, then tell your wife. Leave my wife out of it. I make my own sandwiches. The bologna that you have in your mind wasn't given to you by someone else. You let somebody else did it to you. Listen, it's your choice. It's your responsibility. Grow up. Take a... Oh, I got this. This is... Got a laminate card. I was in a doctor's office one day and I saw this in a magazine, and I pulled it out. How do you think I write all of my books? I love it. It says, just do it. We hear it almost every day, sigh, sigh, sigh. I can't get myself motivated to lose weight, test my blood sugar, etc. And we hear equal number of sighs about diabetes educators who can't get their patients motivated to do the right things for their diabetes and their health. We have news for you. Motivation isn't going to strike you like lightning. Motivation is not something that someone else, nurse, doctor, family member, can bestow or force on you. The whole idea of motivation is a trap. Forget motivation, just do it. Exercise, lose weight, test your blood sugar or whatever. Do it without motivation, and then guess what? After you start doing that thing, that's when motivation comes and makes it easy for you to keep doing it. You see, motivation is like love and happiness. It's a byproduct. When you're actively engaged in doing something, it sneaks up and zaps you when you least expect it. As Harvard psychologist Jerome Bruner said, you're more likely to act yourself into feeling than to feel yourself into action. So act. Just do it. Wow. You see, life is what happens to you. Attitude is what you do about what happens to you, and it's a choice. And Paul said, take responsibility for it. So, Paul said people with great attitudes, number one, they possess a teachable spirit. Number two, they take responsibility for their attitude. Number three, they travel the high road. You see, God chooses what we go through, but we choose how we go through it. And in verse 8, Paul, this is, I love this passage. I love this passage. Talk about teaching us how to travel our high road. What does Paul say? Paul says, fill your minds and meditate on what? The best. Not the worst. The best is high road. The worst is low road. Think on the beautiful. High road. Not the ugly. That's low road. Things to praise. High road. Not things to curse. That's low road. I'm telling you, I only get to come once every 3 years, so I save up. Talk about perspective. High road, low road. I have in my hands a diary of a dog. And I have in my hands a diary of a cat. Here's the dog's diary. 8 a.m., dog food, my favorite thing. 9:30 a.m., a car ride, my favorite thing. 9:40, a walk in the park, my favorite thing. 10:30, got rubbed and petted, oh, my favorite thing. 12, lunch, my favorite thing. 1 p.m., played in the yard, my favorite thing. 3 p.m., wag my tail, my favorite thing. 5 p.m., milk bones. Love milk bones, my favorite thing. 7 p.m., got to play ball, my favorite thing. 8 p.m., wow, watch TV with the people. My favorite thing. 11 p.m., sleeping on the bed, my favorite thing. Excerpt from a cat's diary. I see the train a-coming. Day 983 of my captivity. kills me and I know what's happening. Day 983 of my captivity, my captors continued to taunt me with bizarre little dangling objects. The only thing that keeps me going is my dream of escape. That's the difference between high road and low road. Isn't that beautiful? Oh, man. Joyce, last night you talked about the prodigal, the two prodigals. I was sitting over there beside Dave, your son, and I pulled out this part of the message. I said, she stole my message. Thing that ticks me, I don't mind you stealing the message. It's just so much better than mine. That's what ticks me. Let me just say something just real quickly about the two prodigals. You know, the younger brother wasted his life. You know that. She talked about it. The older brother, always there, faithful, hanging around the house, didn't give me a party. You see, the younger brother committed the sin of the flesh, but the older brother committed the sins of the Spirit. See, the younger brother, we know what his problem was. What's sad is, the older brother who does his duty, we don't see his sin. But the attitude will always express itself. And sooner or later it will come out. And when the son came back home, that's when the attitude started to come out. You see, I think as long as the son was gone, the older brother did okay around the house. But when the younger brother came, and the jealousy and the envy and all the stuff, these attitude issues in his life, and what's really interesting, isn't it interesting, that the younger brother is now home inside with family having a party. And the brother with the attitude, he's outside the house. He's outside the house. There are three roads to travel. Let me give this to you quickly. The low road, where we treat others worse than they treat us. The middle road, where we treat people the same as they treat us. And the high road, where we treat others better than they treat us. And I'm telling you, Paul, in this passage of Scripture, when he says, choose the beautiful, not the ugly, the best, not the worst, the prey, listen, not the curse, he's very, very, very clearly he's talking to you and me, and very clearly he's saying to us, travel high road, travel high road. It's a choice which road you and I travel. I know we've overdosed on cards, but I'm not too disciplined when it comes to this area. And I wasn't going to bring this one out. Honestly, this is not my fault. It's Joyce's. Because Joyce made just a couple comments about the few men in the audience last night. And they were nice comments. They weren't, but we men definitely felt and knew and realized that we were a minority. And that we knew that we were welcome, but we weren't really welcome. And that, thank God, some of us have women's names. And that we did get in a little illegally, and it's really Joyce's fault, because if she didn't have such a wonderful conference, we wouldn't sneak in with our wives. It's her fault. But I felt, because this is on attitude and this is on thinking, I felt that I pulled this one out. I wasn't going to do this, but for the 100 men in the audience and me, I would like to talk to you just for a moment about 8 words that women use. This is for our welfare. This will help your marriage. In fact, this was what I'm going to tell you is worth you coming to the conference and being subject to stares and ridicule. The first word that a woman, and I'm going to help you understand this. I've got it all written down. I don't understand it well, so I have to have it all written down. You understand this? I keep this with me. I've been married for 41 years. It's not an accident, folks. I keep things like this with me. When your wife says, fine, this is the word women use to end an argument when they are right and you need to shut up. I'm helping you take the high road here. This is high road teaching. So when they say fine, it's not fine. Just shut up, be happy. When your wife says 5 minutes, if she's getting dressed, this means half an hour. 5 minutes is only 5 minutes if you have been watching a ball game and she wants you to go somewhere with her. Understand the difference between 5 minutes and 5 minutes. 5 minutes and 5 minutes are not the same 5 minutes. I'm trying to help. I'm doing my best. We got to hang in there together, guys. We are outnumbered huge. In fact, when I'm done with this teaching, we'll all run. Fast. Never to be seen again. Another word they use is nothing. Nothing doesn't mean nothing. This is the calm before the storm. Nothing means something, and you should be on your toes. Arguments that begin with nothing usually end in fine. Okay, number 4, I'm helping. I'm just doing my part. Go ahead. This is a dare, not permission. I beg of you men, don't do it. Don't do it. Go ahead doesn't mean go ahead. Nothing doesn't mean nothing, and fine is not fine. Number 5, a loud sigh. This is actually a word. This is a non-verbal statement that is misunderstood by men. A loud sigh means she thinks you are an idiot and wonders why she is wasting her time standing around arguing with you about nothing. Refer back to number 3 if you forgot what nothing means. Nothing isn't nothing. Number 6, that's okay. This is one of the most dangerous statements a woman can make to a man. That's okay means she wants to think long and hard before deciding how and when you will suffer. That's okay. That's okay. Oh, that's okay. That's okay. When they say that's okay, it's not okay. Number 7, thanks. A woman is thanking you. Do not question or faint. Just say, you're welcome. Now I want to add a clause here. This is true unless she says, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot is pure sarcasm. And she is not thanking you at all. And do not say, you're welcome. By the way, if you say, after they say thanks a lot, you say you're welcome, you'll hear a whatever. Number 8, don't worry about it. I got it. It's another dangerous statement, meaning this is something that a woman has told a man to do several times, but is now doing it herself. This will later result in a man asking what's wrong, and for the woman's response, refer to number 3. It's nothing. Nothing. Do you like my cards? All right. I got one more thing and then I'm done. Paul said people with great attitudes, number 1, possess a teachable spirit. 2, take responsibility for their attitude. 3, travel the high road. Are you with me? Number 4, understand its value. The value of a great attitude. You see, there's little difference between people, but the little difference makes a big difference. And the little difference is attitude, and the big difference is whether it's positive or negative. And Paul understood that. And that's why he said, fill your minds and meditate and practice on good thinking. And he said the result is this, number 9, verse 9, do that, and God, who makes everything work together, will work you into his most excellent harmonies. A good attitude has value in the beginning of a task. If you don't believe that, ask a surgeon, ask a coach, ask a teacher. A good attitude has value in the middle of the task. And finally, a good attitude has value at the end of the task. I close with one very personal story. It's about my father. He's 89, doing good. My mom went to be with the Lord last year. They've been married for 66 years. And I wish you could know my dad, and here's why. Everything I've taught you about attitude today out of the Word of God, from what Paul says, all you have to do to understand a great attitude is have a picture of my dad. He's an amazing person. On their 25th anniversary, or their 50th anniversary a few years ago, we took a trip to Hawaii with our whole family, extended family, I don't know, 28 of us or whatever. And one night, Dad and I were talking. Everybody else went to bed in our hotel room, and I was talking to Dad, and I said, Dad, you have such an amazing, positive attitude. Were you born with it? And he smiled. He said, no, son. He said, I have a tendency to be cynical and negative. And as a very young person, I realized that my attitude was going to determine my success. Norman Vincent Peale was one of his mentors. In fact, he took me to meet Norman Vincent Peale when I was in the 7th grade. And he said, I grew up in a poor town in Georgetown, Ohio, just a little town of 800 people. And he said there were only 3 people that were highly successful in the town. And he said, I did chores for those 3 people. He said, we were a poor family. And I did chores for all 3 of those people. And as I was in junior high and high school, I kept asking myself, why are they successful and the rest of us aren't? He said, by the time I was a junior, I came to the conclusion the reason they were successful and others are not is because they think differently than others. That's where I got that seed thought. That's why I wrote the book, How Successful People Think. I got it. That was the seed of that book being written. And he said, I determined since the attitude was what made them successful, that I would have a good attitude. So he said at a very young age, I worked on my attitude. And he said, I have to work on it constantly because I have a bent towards negativity. I have a bent towards being cynical. Okay, that was quite a few years ago. When I was at his house the day that the doctors basically told us that my mom only had a very few days to live, she had cancer. And Dad asked me to go in his office. It was just the 2 of us. We were sitting there, and he was asking if I would do the funeral, and we were talking about things that we knew we were going to have to deal with as far as helping Mom. Dad made a statement to me. He said, son, he said, I really love people. In fact, he said, isn't it amazing that the older we get, the more we love people? And I said, no, Dad, that's not true. That's not true at all, Dad. I know a lot of people, they're getting older, but they're not getting better. Maturity doesn't come with age. Sometimes age comes alone. And I said, Dad, the reason you love more people more today than you loved them 20 years ago is because you have such an attitude of heart for people. You've made a choice. And because you made that choice as you get older, it's just blossoming and it's become beautiful. So we talked about it a little bit. But my dad, I wish you could go down to Central Florida. He's in Winter Haven. I wish you could see him. He has a ministry. He has a ministry of care he's in a mobile home park. And 15 years ago, he decided that he wanted to be the chaplain of his park. And so I was down to see him. He said, son, I'm going to be the chaplain of my park. I said, that's great, Dad. And I said, who made you chaplain? He said, I made myself. Just raised my hand. I'm the chaplain. And he said, we have a few volunteers, a half a dozen volunteers, and he said, we care for people. We take them food when they need food. And he said, next time you're down, we'll go over here to the club there, the little building in our park, and would you talk to my half a dozen volunteers? I said, Dad, I'd be glad to. So I gave him a date. About a week before I came down to talk to his half a dozen volunteers, he called me on the phone. He has a deep voice. He said, son, we got a problem. So what's that, Dad? Well, he said, it's out of hand down here. It's got out of hand, son. It's out of hand. It's out of hand. I said, Dad, what do you mean? What's out of hand? He said, well, the crowd, they're out of hand. It's out of hand, son. I said, Dad, wait a minute. I'm coming down to the park. We're going to go down over to the little club park there in the center, and I'm going to speak to your half a dozen volunteers. Oh, son, it's changed. Everything's changed. Everything's changed. He said, we have over 900 registered right now. And I said, Dad, excuse me. Wait a minute. What am I missing? What am I missing? It's out of hand, son. I said it's out of hand. It's just out of hand. He said it's gotten away from me. It's gotten away from me. He said I don't know what to do. We're going to have to move the venue. We're going to have to go to a building in Winter Haven. We're going to get a big building. Got a big building. He said more are coming. I said, what do you mean more are coming? I said, how did it get out of hand? Well, he said I did advertise in the Lakeland paper for free. I went down on a Monday morning at 10 a.m., 1,300 people. You have to be a senior citizen, 10 a.m. on Monday morning. 1,300 people showed up. I talked them to that day, and I told them about my dad's park ministry. It took off. People from parks all over Central Florida said, we want to have that kind of ministry. Now, right to the end, he's 89. He has over 600 volunteers. He's in 57 mobile home parks. Next month he moves into a kind of a total senior citizens complex, Vienna Squares in Winter Haven. We want him to have all the care. He's still very self-sufficient, but we want to get him in a place. And so we were talking. I had him down last weekend. He said, son, next month I go in Vienna Squares. He said, I'm going to be the first one who moves in. And he said, son, every meal I'm going to go down into the cafeteria where we have our meals. And every meal I've determined I'm going to eat with different people each time. And he says, I'm going to meet him, and I'm going to connect with him, and I'm going to love him. And I'm going to bring them to Jesus. Listen to me, friends. Whether you're 9 or 89, your attitude is a choice. Let's have a great attitude, and let's glorify God with it. Thank you very much.